There we are. Okay, we're good. Oh, so just quickly, formatting has changed a little bit. We are moving into the world of computer assisted help with policies. So what you're going to see now in the packet is the first policy is actually our quote old policy with redactions and additions made from the NHSBA suggestions already in there. And then you've got the NHSBA policy as is. So it's not just our policy, their policy, and we're trying to figure it out. It's our old policy, what it would look like if we included everything from NHSBA so we could work straight off of our policy and use NHSBA as a reference point.
So in some ways, is this really the only one we really need to look at? Because then you've got duplicates afterwards.
Yes and no, because the NHSBA policy includes a lot of the notes and legal references and, I don't know, tidbits of information that you might want to figure out why things were changed, but
But the board would pass
The one
first
that is-
one with
right.
all of the
Yes.
additions and.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just appreciate that. That was like my dream for years to have
So-
it in a single place.
Well, when you said it after the last meeting, we were trying to, so to be full disclosure, the first one, GBEBB.
Yeah.
Looks slightly different than the rest of them. Because I painstakingly did this
No.
through, and I
Yeah.
thought this is not gonna work.
so I made it my mission to figure out how
Yeah.
to simplify this process, and lo and behold, there's a way to do it.
Yeah, and then,
Actually, it's called Student Government Day. We just let the kids do
Right.
it.
Oh, yeah.
well,
So here you go.
Yes.
Take 5 minutes and fix this.
Patty did do a deep dive into something else that wouldn't be so time consuming.
Yeah.
And then had her admin assistant do the rest of them.
Yep.
That is
I think that's
fantastic.
gonna be
So
transformative for
appreciate
us.
it.
Yeah, especially if we're trying to get through this volume.
What do you want, like a post-it note?
Just staple.
Oh, stapler, we don't have one in here, no. Okay, so, yeah, so that's why this looks a little different. You'll see
That
when we
is
get to the next one.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's like transformative, because it's been so hard with this volume of policies that we're trying.
It's not foolproof either, so you're gonna, well, you'll see, there's like some places where there's a word crossed out, then a word put,
That's okay.
but you'll get used to it.
Well, and I think the hard part too is when there's like when almost the whole policy changes, then it just looks like the whole policy. I mean,
Yes,
it's hard to decipher sort of what's left of the old one, but having the strike is super helpful.
that's a little bit of info on that. You're welcome.
Thank you. So shall we get started with employee?
So this one is from the fall update. It is now a required policy. It used to only be a recommended policy. It's aligned with the new law, which requires a policy prohibiting staff from transporting students to medical appointments. Is pretty much the big change that was in here, aligned with the law.
This is GBEBB.
Yes,
I had two stupid questions about this one.
okay.
One was, I think, line 27 around exchange of gifts. And I just wondered if there is a value that we would want to put around that. And I know the intention of it, but I also know, for example, like my kid, when they send some sort of gift card to a teacher for doing their college recommendations or something, like it might be $25. And I don't,
Well, that,
I
what is, does de minimis?
De minimis might have a,
is there a legal definition of that that's like tied to like
That's what I-
CPI or
that's what I
something
wondered.
crazy? It's like $10.22 or.
I also think the intent of this clause is it's to prohibit teachers or staff from giving gifts to students, even though it says they
exchange.
I know, but I'm just wondering if we maybe
so
we modify
according,
that part. then it's.
Or like the teacher that Kate interned for gave them like a little Panera gift card or something, and it was
According to the IRS, it's $100 or less.
Oh,
Is what
okay.
de minimis
Pretty
means.
reasonable then.
fine.
Oh, okay.
That seems
Well,
like a lot.
That's
actually,
funny.
but-
Yeah. I think it's what-
Okay.
Well, yeah, but that's not,
Okay. And then it's one other question on line 49, which was talking about staff members being alone with a student in a room. And my only concern with that, I understand the intent of that too, but I'm just thinking in terms of the counseling, which would normally be done one-on-one or nursing. I don't know. I just wouldn't want to
I wondered about that.
prohibit, just it says staff. I mean, it's one thing if it's like you're walking into like a math class and you're like, oh, lights out, door closed, that's, you know.
Well, I
not
also
what want.
had like a literal question about the lights being off too, because in a room where there's windows, the lights might be off and that would be okay.
That's true.
So it's,
I don't know. So I guess I just wondered about that in terms of the practical.
I think that you could adjust because the only part that is legal is the transportation of students.
And I do
I
know
also
that we
a question about
have
that, too.
Cullen like definitely drives students between Lister and the high school for classes.
And that's,
Not medical.
that falls under,
That's
yeah, this is not
education,
right,
that's just medical.
right.
I
Okay.
did wonder though if that happened specifically at Lister, if anyone is driven to medical appointments or.
Not that we understand or that we know that that's happening. We make sure that there's no like that's like personal transportation as opposed to for school purposes.
Oh, I see. That's the difference. Yeah, okay.
I would definitely keep the locked door.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't, I get the.
No, I had the
intention,
same question.
But I was
Lisa.
just thinking about those situations when privacy would be an expectation.
So that I think you could definitely change. That's not part of the legal.
But obviously, the point of it is to keep students safe from being in a dangerous situation. So
Right.
it's a tricky one.
Like it seemed more like having a kid be able to say, I don't want the door closed, or I, you know, want some, I don't know. Then that also becomes really hard to wordsmith.
Right.
And I guess we could think about it and just amend it at the meeting, but I'm just not sure what the right.
Or you could just have staff members shall not be alone in a student with a locked door. Just take out the other two.
Does
I,
that work? I think that works.
That would work.
They wouldn't lock the door.
there's never a
Right.
reason to lock the door.
No, that's,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think, yeah.
But you could close the door if they're vacuuming in the hallway.
Right.
You're just trying to give them, tutoring or something.
So just take out with the door, a door closed. Lights off piece.
I mean, I don't feel strongly about the lights off. That's sort of silly, but
I don't know.
I don't know. I also don't want a teacher to get in trouble because the kid has a migraine and they turn the lights off to get, like, I don't know. It doesn't, I don't know which way.
It's also just says staff. It
Okay.
doesn't say just teachers.
Right. A dark, I mean, yeah, a dark room is kind of sketchy, but
You know,
I think the locked door is certainly the more significant piece, so. We want to just go with that?
I just worry that if something if a staff member had ill intention, it's likely that they ignore this anyways.
True.
But there's a lot of situations where someone would just benignly close the door or turn off the light and could get in trouble for it. I just,
Yeah,
that's,
I agree. I'd rather that not have.
I just worry about putting staff at risk unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
For something.
Yeah,
I
but
think
there's
might
no
help.
reason for the door to be locked.
right, there's never,
Okay,
no.
so should we strike the lights off part? Just leave with the locked door? If that makes sense. Okay. Okay. That one?
Now, this next one, which policy I see, the red font is what's added in or struck from our current policy. So the first one, again, is our policy. The NHSBA interwoven, and the second one is the plain, straight up NHSBA policy.
Okay. One with the yellow and blue. Well, the both of you.
Wait, no.
I don't think anything struck me about this was different. You know, the one thing I will say, don't we call Columbus Day,
We're not allowed to anymore.
We did until it was.
The students,
Down, like,
yeah. Yeah. Can't do it.
now legally it must be called Wednesday on paper and everywhere else.
I figured that was the case. It
And
just,
only Columbus Day. Right?
Yeah, because we were trying to skate it for.
We were trying to do both.
I figured that was the case. That was the only thing that struck me. I just thought, oh, what a shame.
It is. Yeah.
Is it worth putting the district at risk for rename?
Is there a reason we're striking the dates for the school calendar? Because I feel like the last time this policy came around, that was a substantial discussion.
Well, what was struck was what was in our policy that is not in the NHSBA policy. So that doesn't mean that you can't put it back, because I remember the last time we met on this, which was just recently.
It was not that long. ago.
Right, lines 21 and 22 actually replaced what they've got in lines 12 through 14.
Yeah, I mean, I would put that back in.
Yeah.
1 and 22, and I would also put back in 63 to 64 with the dates. Unless there's a reason not to, because I feel like we had a lot of discussion with
No.
staff about what was practical and what could also give staff and families kind of a timely
Yeah, and people.
understanding of the calendar.
Right, and that's fine. The changes were because of, again,
Yeah.
this is a 306 change about school days and snow days and graduation.
Yeah.
So, and that's coming up on line 84 through 92-ish.
And the other, can I just ask you though, before we move on? If we bring back lines 21 and 22, are we also going to keep 12 through 14?
No, I don't
Just-
think you need to.
No, I think both can be true.
Right,
Okay. Yeah, strike all that then.
So I'm striking 12 through 14.
Yeah, and like,
And
adding
restore
21.
21 and 22,
Okay.
and restore the date on 63 and 64.
What's the date on 16?
On 63, I'm sorry. So
16.
December 18. Program superintendent will give the calendar to the board.
Okay, so I'm
And then
restoring
March 1st, by March 1st.
yeah. I think we also need to strike 16 and 17. Because 21 talks specifically
Oh.
about support staff. I think what we need to do
Oh, yeah.
for
yeah,
21, the school year for, I think we need to say certified professionals and support staff shall follow.
yeah, in 21, you mean?
Yeah,
Right, because we have to identify both of them.
so Paulette,
Yeah, got that.
we're gonna knock out 12 through 17.
Okay,
We're gonna move 21 to 22 up,
okay.
and it will be say the school year for certified professionals and support staff.
Okay.
And on line 63 and 64, put back in December 18th and then first is those days. We'll say this may be coming back to us by summer because they're looking at a few different bills that would address heat days. The requirements for plans similar to planning for snow days.
And did we approve the final calendar already? Next year, didn't we? Just making sure we're in line with the
And
policy.
then the
Yeah.
graduation date, I was just looking at line 84 on this one, so it's saying more than 5 school days or 30 instructional hours before the scheduled end of the school year.
Mhm.
Because we do say that that is true for the senior class, but then the rest of the high school is still there for another 10 days, 2 weeks. So does that work for what we do?
I think we're somewhere between 5 days and 30 hours.
Oh, okay. Defer to you on that, I just.
I
wasn't
think
sure.
we're fine.
Okay. Yeah, it is odd. Okay. So much easier to read.
It is, it really is. It's like,
I feel like I paid attention.
Well,
so
wait till
much.
this next one, because here comes some of the, here's a word, let's cross out a word. Here's another word, let's cross out another.
oh yeah, that's
This, it's gonna get interesting.
pretty, you know.
It's pretty, yeah, well, and that's the other thing we discovered is you do one, it comes out red. You do the next one, you get magenta. You do another one, it's green. And we're looking at this, we're going, why isn't it consistent?
It just wants to mess with their brains.
The crossed out ones were what was here. Remind me again of what's
So what you're looking at that's crossed out is what used to be in our
in our
policy.
policy.
That doesn't live in the NHSBA policy.
Okay,
Anything that was added is from NHSBA to merge with our policy.
okay. So we no longer have these things. So I guess when I read through this, I didn't look at what was crossed out. I only read what was, okay, so we may want to really put stuff on here.
This is from the fall update. This reflects amendments limiting the amount of state funding for dual and concurrent enrollment to 4 courses per year.
Right.
It's dual coded. Here's something that's interesting that we discovered back when we were working on the presentation where we had all the administrators in here. Even though we are limited to 4 courses per year, the community college system will only allow 2.
I think that it's, what it is they only allow 2 for free, and then you can do more.
Great.
And then you have to pay $150.
Yep.
for course.
So
So we pay for up to 4. We would
Well, the
pay-
state has a fund that pays for the community college classes. For the first 2 are free and it's discounted, so the kids pay $150 per class. After
Right.
that. Makes sense. I have a couple questions about this, and I feel like we're the same questions I had the last time this policy came up. But is there a way to better, by policy, like make clear that we want the options communicated to families and students? We had talked like a year ago about that going into the handbook as an explicit option as kids are building their schedules.
line 79 and 80 talks about annual notification,
Yeah.
but we could also take that. to
And maybe
be
that doesn't
more-
live in policy,
Directive
but I
instead of
just feel like
prescriptive.
it's not happening.
Well, I think if we take that as being more directive,
Do we want to even mention the handbook maybe?
Well, I don't know if that's the right place. I'm not trying to like dictate where it goes. Like, I just think, you know, what I mean, like when you get your course registrations, nowhere in there does it give you all these other options. So when kids are told like your math class meets at the same time as the English class you want, they pick one and don't always know that they could take one at grade day or something.
But do you want anything about that in the policy or do you want that as a practice?
It's like it could be a practice, right? I just feel like the practice hasn't happened. And that's where it makes me wonder, we need to express more.
well, I know that Brittany Lynn, who was here that same night, is the one who does have those conversations with students.
Totally.
And it's hard to kind of know. I mean, yeah, the colleges will set their course schedules up, but again, it's like anything else. Like, oh, I want to take, pottery 3, and then suddenly pottery 3 gets canceled or something like that. It's, I think she does do a good job of explaining what's available and providing that information. I don't know to what extent, but that, I think that is something that we could certainly explore with the high school administration, especially as we're having the change
Yep.
over.
And she's excellent. I just don't get the sense that every student gets to her
Yeah,
when there's a need for that.
and again, with the addition of the assistant director of student services overseeing counseling, this could be another thing that that person includes as part of their work. Anything else on that one? This one is dual coded, which means it'll live in the I policies and the L policies.
I just, and the response, it says on lines 44 through 47. Students enrolling in courses exceeding a total of 4 credits are responsible for all costs above and beyond 4 credits in an academic year. And then, so I assume lower than 4 credits, it's covered by either the state or the
Mhm.
district.
Yeah.
And that's the RSA link, that's the RSA that they're referencing as language about that.
And they're gendering again this year.
Of course.
Oh, but aren't you guys saying that it's actually just 2 credits?
It's 2 courses free.
And then the other next two are heavily subsidized, so they're
Yeah.
not at like the full cost. It's like $150.
But.
And then after that, they have to pay all the costs and it's no longer
So if it's a
subsidized.
$500 class, it's a $500 class if it's credit number 5.
Okay. And does that, I mean, should we put anything, I don't know if the like opportunity fund or if there, are there ways that that can be covered for certain students?
I think they can ask for it. And I think this is something that the counselors would know what those sort of pots of money are that are available.
Okay. We don't need to specify that.
No. And I actually wouldn't because you don't know what they are, because if you're limiting them to this pile of money or this, and there's another one, we don't want to say,
And technically, they could go to VLAX and do AP once they run out of dual enrollment and still have it be free if they're really
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, there's maybe 2 kids a year that do that.
New changes on that one?
No. The last time we changed all the references to AP because we went actually had those.
Right. Sounds long.
yeah,
Appreciative, but. That's not the part to.
this has been a change to title. So you can see that. Just change of school assignment. And section A has been restructured to reflect a change in law. Added a definition of a approved private school. Section B4 has correction to a legal reference.
Do we have approved private schools like this?
In the area,
I mean, is Portsmouth, does our district approve any?
Are there out, does this apply to out of district placements?
Yeah, I'm just curious about that too.
And if so, aren't there?
this is about manifest hardship and best interest. So this would be, this is really rare that this happens,
Yeah.
but you might have a situation where there's a student that had some kind of a traumatic experience at school
Right.
and they cannot be in that building anymore, cannot because of a person, a room, a something. And the parent will lobby the superintendent's office for a change in school assignment. In a district like ours, where you've only got like one high school, one middle school, three elementary schools, elementary, it might be easy. But middle and high school, you might be looking at going to another district.
Right.
Where we have, I think in the past, taken students who've come maybe like from Dover, like for those same reasons. But this is not special ed related at all. This
That's
is
what-
something that's completely outside of that, that this is the student just cannot be in that building.
Sure.
Or some sort of a situation. It could also be because of family circumstances that I don't even know what its potential situation might be, but parent can't get the student to school or can't pick them up or something.
Is this overlap with like the McKinney-Vento, like if
No.
people don't have housing in their
McKinney-Vento is
That's a whole
covered under
separate
something
track,
different.
right?
This
Okay,
is
just
very
does.
unique,
Okay.
which is why I can't even think of them because this is so rare, but this is unique situations where you're looking for, and I think the approved private school must come into play in places where there aren't as many schools nearby. Like the North Country, but like around here, you could, if you're not gonna be in the district, maybe you go to Dover, maybe you go to Hampton. But it's so rare
And
that,
so we don't really have relationships with those approved private school users.
no, and I don't even know of a school that would be classified as that off the top of my head. So again, it talks about a reassignment within the district. So again, if we had two high schools, okay, well, you're not at Portsmouth High School, maybe you're at Clipper High School, so we're gonna put you there. Outside the district, that might be another option. And it talks about how that would happen, whether there's, has there been a meeting, has there been, determination?
But the,
Flashing.
but the superintendent is the one who determines where the student is assigned anyway. So even though you might have listed approved private school, unless there's a good reason for that, the superintendent's probably going to select a public school anyway.
Right.
The, I thought the 5 days was very,
What line?
sorry, 70. That the superintendent needs to essentially make the decision within 5 days, but I guess that makes sense in the context of like some sort of traumatic.
It's usually like assault or bullying or something like really.
And you also
Here.
want to do it,
For those.
you want to do it with some sort of expediency for the student who's missing school. They could potentially not be in school.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking of it a little bit more broadly, like there was some other reason for the change, but that makes sense.
It's common in New York City that there's like another school like 8 blocks over.
Right.
You can send them to. And it's usually like a really serious situation for the student.
I guess my only other question is, do we have to, and I think I know the answer, but do we have to have all this language about the other options, the approved private schools and stuff? That's not something we actually do or have the option. And we don't,
I think
if
you
we
can,
can't offer that to students, is it a mistake to keep it in the policy?
I think you can put it in there just to say that, these options exist, because if they're coming from another school to here, you want to have some kind of harmony or similarity across,
Yeah.
consistency across, the districts, but there isn't, just because it's in the policy doesn't mean that you have to have a list that includes that.
Okay.
Because that's, the private school is like the third option.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're not getting put in a position where we don't have, where we can't comply as parents. That's what we don't have to see compliant. My right to be able to.
But it's the superintendent's decision, to Steve's point, so
Yeah.
if the superintendent's making the decision. Okay, I've given, here's your option.
Just look at 59 and 60.
Purposes determining existing school capacity, the superintendent might consider board policy, program capacity guideline for that school year should consult with the, yep. We have an IIB. We have IIB.
So,
When you say shall consult with.
Don't have IIB, so
The superintendent
we'll,
will consider,
we'll consult with the student, yeah,
just go to shall consult with.
yeah.
The will or shall?
Are those different?
Oh, yeah, this debate all the time.
I know.
Shall,
May to have it at least once a day.
leave it as shall, because it's there, superintendent shall consult.
Can I ask you a question on this one?
you want to leave it as student services directing.
We want it to be
Uh,
the position title and so. Good services. What line are you on?
I'm wondering about, it says in determining, looking at 1B, in determining whether to grant a request to change students' current assignment within the current school or to another public school, academy, or approved private school within the district. The superintendent will only consider whether the school has the ability to accommodate the student based upon existing capacity. So does that mean that if someone made a request that we would send their kid would be sent to St. Pat's?
It's contingent on them having a seat.
But
But it's, I thought.
Does that mean-
Odd phrase, will only consider.
so does that mean that if St. Pat's has room and someone wants their kid sent to St. Pat's because they feel their child's some issue in the school? Superintendent be say, okay, they have room in St. Pat's, so we have to send them, I guess. Not clear and
I think.
So this is in the section that talks about within the district, this moves. So consider a larger school
Oh, yeah.
district. So let's think about our current situation in elementary. If the parent is wanting to make a change and Zach is looking, if we know that Don Darrow is bursting, he probably won't consider it. Maybe it's a grade level that there is no room. He's not going to consider that because there's literally no seats available in that grade level. So then he'll look at another elementary school.
So you could request to leave Little Harbor and New Franklin, but you couldn't dictate which school you go to.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
Okay, well, if that's what that means, then I think we need to move the word only. This is a very grammatical thing, but it would make a difference because I think it needs to say the superintendent will consider only whether the school has the ability to accommodate the student. Because what I thought this meant was that was the only consideration they would make. Whether the school had.
that's the way I read it.
Yeah, and bigger
Well, go to the
districts,
next- go to the next paragraph.
It's a good football team.
Go to the next paragraph. And I do agree with that point about like, if you're in a district that has 3, 4, 5 high schools, I want to go to, Championship High School because my child is a basketball player and I want them like,
And that's
okay,
not
but
what
that's
this is.
great, but Championship High School is full. I can't send your child there because they're a budding basketball player. Like I can send your child to Meadowlark High School. But I can't send them to Championship High School because there's no room. This is not the open enrollment conversation or the,
It will be.
Right.
but
No.
school shop. It's this is about hardship where we're putting a student where they will be better
Okay.
served.
But do we need that
That is
word
the
only
intention.
there? Because I think it's, do we, in that part, can we just say the superintendent will consider whether the school has the ability to accommodate the student based upon existing.
Remove it.
But I think the intention is that is the only consideration, right?
Because you don't want them to suddenly go through, okay, well, do they have space? Is it a championship basketball team? Do they have, after-school programs? Do, like, all of a sudden it becomes this list of requests that, you know, do they have, is it a blue ribbon school? Is it what are we looking for? If we're looking for a school where we can accommodate literally a student to sit them.
So then you do want to leave it.
I
think we do.
I think you
we
do.
do, but I would put it after consider.
Well, consider only.
Okay, so we'll consider only.
Line
Yeah.
56.
And as long as you're being kept, on line 73, I think we have an extra G at the end of within.
Good thing. And that probably came from NHSBA. Good thing.
Probably.
They have a lot of errors.
They're not the best typists.
No.
They also have, what are they,
Who's really paying
the legal students interning to do this? Because every time we get these, we'll get like and thank you to so-and-so who was interning in our office and put these packets together and kind of going, okay, well, you're blaming them for all your typos.
Nice way to do it.
Right.
Really funny. Okay, but I did want to discuss whether this has anything to do, I mean, this isn't going to be impacted, I mean, this isn't going to impact our redistricting in any way. Because they have to demonstrate some.
It's a manifest hardship. Yep.
Oh, another question.
Yep.
And we go to line 120.
Yep.
At some point, maybe like a couple of years back, we had talked about using more gender neutral language in all of our policies, and I wondered if
Yep.
we're defaulting to he and she because the state is telling us to.
So just so you know, even when you guys don't pick it up, because I had to do all
No, I know you did.
173
It's a crazy
policies,
list.
I already will change it back.
Oh, okay.
It's just that it's different.
No, fine. I just wonder if
than
the
what
state
she's
is not
agreed.
mandating that we can't do it
No,
yet.
not that I've heard.
No.
So I will convert it all to
Okay.
gender neutral.
This literally was, put these two documents in and different, tell me what's the same, put it on one document.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of strike through where it took away like the neutral and turned it to like he and she.
Let's call it one more. Undertake.
Yeah, but else have you got to do? All of the things.
This next one is also a fall update. The big change here, is related to JIC, J-I-C-K. The change in the law about bullying between districts passed, and so the adjustments have been made to include how to address that. They've also added more definitions, as well as information about statutory provisions related to immunity and liability. So structure of the policy, title of the policy, a lot of changes, a lot of strikeouts and rewrites because they sort of moved sections around. That's why it looks so red.
I thought that it was actually better structured.
I think it reads easier. It's long and it always was long.
Everything was switching from people to student. That
Thank
new,
I think it's probably to clarify this for,
that's
yeah.
standard words.
And I think it might have something to do with the inter-district. So pupil is like specific.
Yeah, that's. Oh, I don't know if I missed it or not, but is there any mention of social media? I didn't see
Well,
it.
cyberbullying.
I mean, there's all this stuff about electronic devices, but I don't know I mean, I guess all of that is consumed over an electronic device, so. Covered, it just seems to me like that. That's the most common area. for
Because at one point we said just online, but then that was like, not
That was too vague.
true.
Yeah, exactly. I know, that's true.
Cyberbullying, I think, covers both social media as well as text messaging and
I don't know if there's any way to, very beginning of it, the definition is a significant incident, which obviously requires a lot.
line.
The very first page, is 126.
Mhm.
I just know that for me, always, sometimes when a parent would consider significant, especially when I was dealing with K1 and 2 kids.
It's all the things. That's
I-
high school too.
And I would be sitting there kind of thinking, okay, and I would try to find my way of having to say, is this do you want me to follow a formal investigation or do you want me to handle this as a regular discipline issue? Because some often, especially at that level, I mean, at that level, so much of it was impulsive.
Right.
But to the parents, I always felt like I had to be careful that if they thought it was of true bullying, the situation, obviously I was required to do an investigation, which then I knew I had 2 or 3 hours work ahead of me for something that I thought was very inane, but I also had to make sure I was following the parents' request. So that was a challenge for me.
And we do address that when we have trainers, the lawyers come in and train on that, what a significant incident might be compared to just a regular noodlehead behavior that they just need to have a different kind of conversation.
And this is one where I feel like the last time it came up, I was curious about sort of the part where we educate kids.
Mhm.
Maybe I read over it, but I didn't see any provision for students to be kind of getting some type of active education on this periodically.
Good point. I think
Because I do feel like this is
do
one of those, like to your point, Steve, like if kids have a better idea of where our expectation, like or how they treat each other. But I also wonder, do we have that in the other policy that's not?
Anything that is crossed off, so for instance, page that has lines 195 through. So line 203 talks about annual education program, line
Yeah.
203.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been removed.
Yeah.
Talked about it before. Yeah. That's what I was looking for.
it's been removed.
I was trying to figure out if it went somewhere else or we just. I do think, like, especially with how quickly.
Line 635.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How did you do that?
It's line 635. And following, and following, and following.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Never
Again,
mind, that's
it's
fine.
been all moved around, so it's hard to find stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
Good.
And it goes into a little bit more specific detail about what that looks like, bullying and cyberbullying.
Yep.
Integrating it into behavior programs, so Character Strong, Wayfinder, we would cover those things.
And when, as part of handling this, is there any type of education, like if we do decide that a student was engaged in this behavior, do you have any?
Mediation, I think
Yeah.
that's in here.
I think it was too, but now I'm like, what was it?
I know that there's social programs that are used within the school system. I'm assuming, like, I think character building, whatever it's called.
Character strong, yep.
I assume that probably has built in the elements of related to bullying, does it?
Yep.
I mean, just assume I don't know much about that. Can you close?
So Lisa, starting on line 476, talks about disciplinary consequences, interventions, which include restitution, counseling, corrective instruction, peer support, mediation. Disciplinary consequences should be varied, developmentally
Yep.
appropriate.
What line did you say that's on?
476.
Looks like we might have crossed out too much there. Section just starts with who have been found.
No, above 476. While
Oh,
students, this is where it gets weird.
Oh, I see. So that's all together.
While students, that's part H, while students who have been, this is what I'm saying. It's weird.
Okay,
Yeah,
Gotcha.
makes sense.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I said, it gets interesting when you start looking at the class files, and you're like, where did this
Okay.
go?
Right,
I
that
forget that
is, that
totally makes
is,
sense.
And on these denser policies, it's harder, but
It's still way easier for me than the old way. We kind of.
Especially when they reorder it and you're trying to go back and forth. It's
Yeah.
like near about. Okay, are we good on that one?
we're good. I will say, I just will say again, every time one of these came across my desk, it was.
oh, yeah.
I just knew I had hours of work ahead of me.
I have
Yeah.
provided the administrators with a flow chart.
Oh,
Say,
really?
look, and yeah, so that if you're involved in this, start here, go to this, check this off, did you do this?
Right. No, it was,
It's a lot, and if you're trying to do that and the other stuff you're doing in the day,
and you have to be careful to hit all the deadlines.
Yeah.
You don't want to miss it. And then if you've got three of them going on at the same time, really. You do it,
LCF.
Now, this one, last time we talked about the whole recess thing, and I didn't see that in here. I thought that was that a separate?
So this is a 306 change. This is still, we're going back now to spring. So this is almost a year old, these updates. 306 changes, and this is directly connected to policy IMAH, which I believe is on the upcoming board agenda for next week. But this is wellness, and the focus of the wellness policy and wellness from the legislature is sort of focused on a few things that are in here. Talking about things like water bottles, the creation of a wellness committee that specifically looks at school meals, water, how food is marketed, so the nutrition program, and those and snacks and what you can sell. That's what this
Okay.
directly in sort of monitors.
The way I read this policy was if you historically, when I started in high school, just a few years back, you'd always have the mom bringing in 24 cupcakes.
Yep.
And the way I read this is that would no longer be okay. Am I reading that correctly according to this?
So this talks about sales. It talks about sort of discouraging that. But I think that this is looking at the legal requirements with, the food program.
Who is on a wellness committee at this time?
We don't have.
Would we have the ability to suggest in the policy, like what types of stakeholders we would want in such a committee, or would that be going too far?
They list who they want.
Right, but I'm thinking like there's been from like, I know from parents for years, there's been a real interest in talking about the nutritional
Yep.
aspects of meals.
Well, in 44 to 49,
Does
you
say-
list all the people. It does say parents as part of the committee.
Parents, students, physical education teachers, health ed teachers, school counselors, school administrators, school board members, outside health professionals, school building representatives, and members of the public.
It's pretty comprehensive.
Uh-huh.
Are we required by law at this moment to like anxious on CDC or USDA? Or could we remove that as a guidance?
Let's see what's in that.
Hypothetically. Because we don't want bone marrow to be on the menu in kindergarten.
Oh, so it talks about it's linked to the physical activity requirement of the USDA.
Yes.
So this is,
Which
this was back in, June of 25, so things were a little different.
I know,
So
but
long
the
ago.
current USDA physical fitness
I hear you.
requirements are potentially not as inclusive as we might want them to be for our students.
And then daily physical activity, which is IMAH, which we talked about last time. And then the water piece, that's not new, but that's pretty much what this looks at.
Great. Can we back up just a minute? Is there anyone you wanted to add to that?
I think they're all there. I was catching up to myself. So
Okay.
it says, I mean, there's parents and teachers and,
Yeah, so we can
yeah, I
essentially
think that's,
put on anyone we want.
yeah.
And then RSA 91A talks about when you're supposed to have the meetings. So
I'm just looking to see. Like, I'm wondering, like, in lines like 60. Paragraph, if we can just say conduct a school level. What are we supposed to be assessing there? Like, is it a school level? I just worry about pegging it to those particular
Yeah.
guidelines.
I think just the intention is just to have some standard.
Yes.
So
Agreed.
is there another one we want to choose?
I don't
or-
know, or I mean, can we say like
Is there
assessment
some-
identified by district staff? I mean, I don't know, like if the nurse says it's a good one, or like the food services
Right.
people in our district say it's a good one, I'm fine with that.
well, I think you could make it a little bit more, because I'm thinking like, I don't even know the name of
Like,
it.
well,
Like the
like
group
an
of
annual
pediatricians
assessment
or-
of nutrition and
say
wellness.
that.
Yeah, whatever, or something like that, just like.
I think the pediatric,
Yeah, the
group, I don't know.
Association. might
They're
be-
also,
Are they?
they're better than the CDC.
Okay. So, yeah, we could just say,
Because I think the goal
School
is to
level
have an
assessment.
annual assessment of. And like conduct an annual school level wellness assessment or something like that.
You know how it's done now? How we do the assessment now? Oh, sorry.
It's not happening.
No, I mean, because the USDA was bringing back like the old fitness test that we all did, where you have to climb the rope to the ceiling where you fail. And do it in front of your whole class.
that's a little bring back some PTSD.
Yeah, right? Tell me about it. Yeah.
So I think we could strike that based on Center for Disease Control.
We can just say the wellness committee will conduct
You could just say
a
conduct-
school level wellness assessment annually and just put a period.
Mhm.
And be done with the rest of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we don't want the Alliance for Healthy Generation, blah, 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 any of that.
All of that is just subject to
Yeah.
a lot of
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That would be my preference. I'm prepared to be talked out of that position, but
No, I didn't approve it.
So, you're gonna cross off, you're gonna annually,
so
And
in
then
line
get a
63,
remove-
it says conduct a school level and then add wellness assessment annually, cross out the rest of the paragraph.
You don't want it completed by September
Oh, yeah,
30th?
sorry. I mean, we stop at progress.
Well, then,
So are we just, so we're just cutting out
and
based on all the way to 2025.
I think so.
and then because you want to integrate an action plan
Right.
in January.
Yeah.
Yep,
all right, so just one more time. I'm removing 64 and 65.
Yep.
And then picking it up on 66 at the end.
yep.
But could you just, one more time, 62 and 63, what am I doing there?
Each building wellness coordinator, with the assistance of the wellness committee, will conduct a school level assessment.
Annually.
Skip, skip, skip. No,
No, annually?
no. And create an
Okay.
action plan
Okay,
and generate an annual progress report.
okay.
The
So-
school level assessment report should be completed by September 30th and blah, blah, blah.
Why aren't we putting annually in there?
Because it
At
says,
the end of the sentence.
it's the end of the paragraph, the school level assessment should be completed by September 30th of each school year. That's annually.
Okay.
Is there, not that I have an issue to what you just said, I'm very comfortable with it, but is there any risk in taking out that reference to the federal government in that?
It's not required by law.
Okay, that's all it was. Then there's no problem at all. It also gives you a chance if there's something better that you want. I mean, it might be fine, I have no idea.
Think on line, 164? 65, I think we're referring back to that index that we're not gonna necessarily use. So. I think instead of maybe school health index, just say, and just cross out school health index on 165, so just as annual triennial assessments.
Yep.
That's fine.
Paula, did you catch that?
I do, yeah.
And then I'm looking to see if we reference that. Anyone else? Where are we at with smart snacks? I haven't looked that up in the last month. So is that still actual food?
Yep, it is. I had the nutrition, the foods, Jesus. The director of nutrition look at this,
Okay.
and she flagged a few things. I mean, her big concern was later on about, food sales and fundraising and folks not adhering to that kind of stuff, and selling stuff that is either laden with sugar or that was her big concern.
Yeah. And there's been like the PTAs have had concerns and like the booster clubs and things like that around what they're allowed to sell.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure that bake sales are not covered by this.
This is.
There was a separate, right?
Yep.
Well, big sales is referenced in 327.
It's 9 bake sales a year. Usually okay. Bake.
That's during the school day, but like if you're doing a bake sale on election day, school's not in session, this would not apply.
Yes.
What am I doing for 341?
Yeah, evidence.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Sorry.
Oh,
Right.
Policy is required to have at least one quote measurable goal for nutrition promotion in the school. Does not have to be what it says there. So you could just leave the smart snacks in school nutrition standards and strike the first bullet. Strike the second sentence of the second bullet.
Curious if the smart snacks are still smart.
Hasn't been changed since 2024.
Okay.
So you could strike the first bullet and leave the second bullet just the first sentence.
Okay.
Sound good to everybody?
Let's strike the first sentence of the second bullet.
Strike the first entire bullet.
Yeah.
So lines 341 to 344 gone.
Yeah.
Leave line 346, that first sentence,
So leave the first.
and then get rid of the rest of that bullet.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't even make it as a bullet, just leave it as a continuous sentence. This promotion will include ensuring.
No, I know there was a lot of conversation about vending machines.
Yeah, 4 years ago, which there was.
We know the status of those now. Okay.
There are some that are just empty. Yeah.
I remember the middle school just came up at the ATM meeting last year. Is there rules about what you're allowed to sell in them? To be participating in the school lunch program.
Yeah.
So it is like
Right.
sort of like brand name processed stuff. That you have to put in there.
Okay, yeah.
Where like it's a whole grain pop chart or. And so letting it be empty sometimes was the way to get around.
Water, just water.
Oh, right, like I think there was also like, I think like, right, like you intentionally don't refill them, so you could say you have them available.
It's ridiculous, but yeah, I remember that. now.
Yeah.
Although I do feel like having healthy snacks for like second chance runs is super really. I'm able to do that without worrying about vending machines.
We don't have any sort of any energy drinks in high school, do we?
I mean, students bring them.
Yeah, but they're not.
We don't sell them.
Okay.
They're definitely in the high school. Large quantities. Sure.
Okay.
Right. Lines 403, and just the highlighted, or what would you like me to do with that?
Isn't it say 35 or are we changing that?
You could just leave it as
Just leave
short physical activity breaks
Yeah.
so that you're not being too prescriptive.
Yeah, I like that.
Just short.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then the last one, sorry, line 448, that highlighted section.
The policy is required to include at least one measurable goal for other school-based wellness activities. The range of options is extremely broad, but must state at least one measurable goal. Examples include information dissemination, family engagement, farm to table, health fairs, school gardens, partnerships with community health nutrition organizations.
Can we put back healthy, try it and farm to table?
Again, additional resources are available through the Alliance for a Healthier Generation site.
I think we could put back farm to schools and healthy try it. There was a grant attached to that wasn't there. They went away. There was. Those were really popular and I think pretty effective too. Yeah. So the only time I can touch that, she is elementary.
You could honestly just leave what's highlighted as part of the policy and so that the schools can self-identify.
Are you still looking at 448?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand this. Can you explain? So that will identify one or list with the requirement to engage in one more each year.
So as part of the notes from the NHSBA, it says that by law, the policy has to include one goal for other school-based wellness activities. So this is beyond the food, beyond the physical activity, something else that schools can do. So that's where that bulleted list sort of is there, but was crossed out because
Would it make sense then it would be a duplication, but for here, add 346 line and 347 as the one measurable goal? It would be duplicate, but
I don't understand.
no, because it has to be something that's not food and that's not activity. So that's where they were saying like community partnership, going out and engaging. So you could say, if you don't want to prescribe specifically, you could say each school in the district will select an activity from the list of options below each school year. And then we could put down that list. Sharing information about health and wellness, family activities about health and wellness, health fairs, school gardens, partnership with a community health nutrition organization, and let each school, because they're doing stuff, they are. But I think if you leave it as a list of, you can choose from one of the things below and leave it broad,
Do one of them.
just
Yeah.
pick one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So I'll give you the list
okay, so,
once it
So
makes
we'll
sense.
leave this language in as it is.
Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
That's fine.
and so you're gonna give me,
I'll give you the list. I'll clean up what it says here in this end note.
And I like will endeavor so that you have a little flexibility.
There's a lot going on already. I think if we are too prescriptive, we're gonna end up boxing out something that's happening.
Yeah.
And if we, if you just don't want to create extra work, but you also don't want to ignore what they're doing.
Right. The other necessary when saying this out loud, but I'm assuming we're all on board with approving all of these when you agree.
There's that many changes, it's worth it.
Last messy policy, look at,
That forever?
well, no, today.
Forever. I like how you think, Steve.
You are on this committee, sir.
Welcome to the party.
Honest Paulette does this great.
You are
job.
committing to the committee. Paulette is amazing. She's awesome. All right, this one I believe was also,
Change.
all. Okay, so this is a requirement for the sports injury action plan, modifying the list of employees that are trained in first aid and CPR, requirements for defibrillator training, and provisions for locating the defibrillators, which is tied to EBBCA, which we already approved. The sports injury action plan does exist because we are required as part of our emergency operations plans every year to submit that. So I know that exists and Tom Cos does have that. I think what's gonna happen is he's gonna have to amend what's in that plan to include the list of people.
Yeah. And one question, if you probably heard of that. Looked at that student return to play.
Yeah,
I was curious about incorporating non-sports head injuries into that because not every student needs the protocol to get back on activity. They kind of get at that, but it's a very sports heavy.
and you're talking about the plan.
Yes. But
Okay.
that's not really this policy. It just popped into my brain right now.
When he rewrites the plan to adhere to these new requirements, we can see what's included in there for that.
Like a thinking child managing themselves against concussion outside of playing sports.
I've done things, yes.
And they still were very well, like I handled it really well. This is all about getting back to football practice. That was several years ago too, that might have been updated. Do we do training for staff on CPR and?
Yes.
Defibrillators? Is it everybody or is it just certain people? Like, is it opt-in or?
So it is opt-in. The defibrillator training, I think, is more of a, it's not as hands-on because
Well, the new
Once you
ones you
use
don't
them
really
up,
know,
no.
need to know a lot
No,
to
you-
use. Like they literally have a button that goes.
yeah, so there's overview provided for that, but for the first aid CPR, we have a nurse on staff who is a trained trainer who provides regular,
Gotcha.
I think, twice a month. I know because I put them in the catalog, and anybody can opt in and take them. So it's an ongoing, and I think she's between 5 to 7 people per session. But it's ongoing, and so you want it, you can grab it, and it's anybody, could be paras, could be teachers, could be admin assistants, could be administrators, could be anybody.
That's great.
So it's ongoing.
I do have a question on 51. Do we need to, since we know that we have these plans already written, do we need to have that no later than August 1st, 22?
It's still in the NHSBA plan. Yeah, yeah,
I hate it when the dates are back in time. though.
I know, exactly.
It's so dumb.
It's unnecessary. I mean, can we just say the superintendent shall develop a written plan? Or I guess not, because it could be in the future. I don't know.
I think they left it like that because the original date for the policy was back in 22.
All right.
All right.
Actually, it was brand new in September of 21, so I think that they're just keeping it there for posterity's sake or something.
But if it's,
It just said has developed.
Right.
Yeah, has
I
developed.
know, I don't like having weird old dates.
yeah, I agree. It's very strange.
Yeah, so why don't you,
Okay.
on 53
Superintendent.
has developed.
And will maintain, I don't know, or
Yeah,
update periodically or update as needed or something. like
right. That would make more sense.
As developed and will maintain.
Oh, don't forget in 82, there's that section, annual review and update.
that. Okay.
Mhm.
We don't even need that.
But has developed is good, and then
Okay. That's help. Oh, this is pretty.
well, the lovely colorful policies now.
It's-
About
I
the,
really think it's helpful. It's much easier for my brain to go through it. and-
some of the sections of experiment. That's like, there's a word here, there's a word.
Yeah, but it's so much
Are
better.
we
Oh,
back to what we're doing?
No, I have admittedly, I've made zero progress on that. I don't think we
Well,
really.
we were going to, my memory, tell me if I've got this wrong. I did not contact anyone interviewing because I thought we were going to develop questions.
Yeah, that's
So
what
the
I
three of
mean.
us were chatting afterwards. And we talked about the idea of instead of having a separate committee, we would just go as. Like maybe one of us would take elementary, one would take middle, and one would take high school. We wanted to come up with what are the common questions we want to ask the administrators. We all then can report back.
Mhm.
But this is already on the books, so we're compliant with the law, like technically, so we can take a beat on this.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to like think about what the questions are we want to ask since we have? 5 minutes?
Yeah, we can.
Did we need to revisit anything like open enrollment in student government before we?
So open enrollment, the short story there, to the best of my knowledge at this second, we're waiting for a last minute announcement of a conference committee where the House and Senate will sit down and hash out what version of the bill they want to send. It's still likely to reach the governor. Any advocacy they want to do around this at this time would be probably best directed at the governor. And I do think that we may want potentially by our next meeting or the meeting after that, to be able to try to think about a short and sweet policy that's like a few sentences that says how many students we would want to accept, which I believe we can do by like grade level. So I don't know that we can set it separately for non-Darrow and Franklin, but we could do elementary, middle, and high school is the best of my understanding right now. So we have the ability as a district at this moment to say, we will accept X number of kids and we will allow X number of kids to leave. And I've been trying to get from other school boards what they're passing. Most of the work that's been done right now is on the warrant articles that go to the town meeting day. It's March 10th. I think it's the 10th, maybe I'm wrong about that. But
Actually, I think it might be today.
are there, no.
Maybe it is the 10th. No, it is the
I
10th.
thought it was next week, but anyway, they go to the meeting days. And I mean, I have like, 'cause the Concord Monitor has been tracking just for the Concord area districts, and there's many that are still doing 0 in, 0 out. There are some that are doing a puzzling like 1 in, 1 out, like, which I don't know why that matters. And there's some that are targeting it where maybe they have more capacity at middle school and less at elementary and high school. So they're setting numbers based on that. So
You had said that you thought the 0 might not be a tolerated number.
I would say no matter what we do, litigation is a fairly likely outcome of this. And whether we're parties to it or not, really just depends on any number of things. I don't know if Zach, because at one point he was going to talk to superintendents around the seacoast to see where they were at with it. Because if we decided regionally that everybody wanted to do 0 in, 0 out, and we were all in
That
agreement.
next meeting is coming up Thursday this week, I
Okay.
think. So I
Because I-
don't think that conversation's
To
been held
me,
yet.
like if we agree with everyone around us that that's what we're gonna do, then I mean, I think in theory, that could be protective of stability for our seacoast area schools. Maybe. And if we have a different thought, then I guess the question could be potentially, do we want to talk about whether we want to accept any number of kids at the high school where we believe there is physically space? But I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's kind of probably just in terms of where our enrollment is. Like elementary, I don't think we have room. Middle, we might have a little bit, but we don't have a ton. But I don't know. I mean, I think it would probably be good for Zach to tell us what the area superintendents are gonna do.
Mhm.
And we will only get maybe 24 hours notice of when that conference committee happens. And so, I mean, if we know and it's on a day when any of us can go, like I'll try to alert the board of the possibility to go and be part of that, but
So should we try to build a basic policy at our next meeting? So that we can get that into place?
I want to say maybe, but I've been waiting to see, is there a policy we can steal? Or can Zach come out of the meeting with the superintendents and say, this is what we as superintendents around the seacoast all agree we want to do?
That would be ideal.
Because I'd hate for us to inadvertently word it one way, and then Rye does it another way, and then we're creating problems for each other. And I also don't know what the area agreement,
Big question for.
like, I don't know if we say 0 in, are we invalidating our area agreement, which would not be the correct path forward either.
Sure.
So do we, for our situation, want to say 0 in exclusive? I mean, I don't know what the legal wording would be, right? But we could potentially say something where area agreements will govern, you know, students in from SAU 50 only. For all other SAUs, this is, but I don't know. And then we have to think
So
about for
maybe
the middle
that's
school,
something to discuss on the 24th.
maybe.
And then
But
at
for
the board meeting.
sure,
then-
Zach and Steve Zadravek at a minimum need to be on the same page so that we're not accidentally. And I also don't know for Lister what the implications are for tuition at Lister, because we do take students in from any number of districts. And I don't know that there's a set number of Portsmouth versus non-Portsmouth students there, because I think it depends year by year on sort of what the needs are, right? Or is there something that's, but that would be a Dan Alexander
Well, I also
question.
wonder if it could be specific to open enrollment so that we're not messing with these other three.
So the challenge is that open enrollment doesn't really have that type of nuance to it.
Right.
It's like, if you are a public school, then this is the rule. It's not like we can say this over here is our you know, alternative high school that has separate rules. Like, we may see it that way in terms of how we operate. But open enrollment does not see it that way. Or there's some larger cities that have some public charter schools where they have process. That's also a question in Nashua.
So maybe we wait until the meeting on the 24th.
I feel like by the 24th, maybe we can try, and I guess, I mean, I can shoot an email maybe to Zach and see.
The only piece I had thought about in terms of regards to this was that we must have, I don't know if it's in the teacher contract or somewhere, optimum class sizes that we recommend for classes. I don't know. There must be language about the maximum class size.
I know we have a policy somewhere, but I don't know, I don't think it's part of the contract with the teachers. I feel like you're right, there is a policy.
But,
And it's a higher number than we practically try to hit.
right, but you could, if you did, wherever that's written, you could say, no, students coming in from X schools will not cause us to exceed more than 80% of our maximum. You could set a percentage rate.
Mhm. And some districts are actually looking at class size maximums as a way to underpin that open enrollment argument. Because you're right, like you could sort of like what is full is kind of depending on whether you want to cram, 30 kids into a kindergarten classroom.
We should never be going above what we ever, I mean, we should not even get close to our maximum.
Correct. And yeah, we do have a policy that I can't remember which
I
one. it
can't
is.
find it, I'm looking.
I was gonna say, there is something I believe in the teachers,
This-
agreement of
But it's a
class
high
sizes.
number.
I thought,
Not enough to get anywhere near.
I
It's
thought
like
it was,
30s or something.
I thought it was the teacher.
Let me pull that up. Let's see. These are
Because the reason it being teacher.
Yeah, I got the teacher's contract.
Because then you would get an aide or you would, I mean,
Yep. Class size, Article 22. You are correct.
happens once a year.
Okay, so for
Really?
K-2 is 25 students or fewer per educator,
Okay,
provided that the school strives to achieve the class size of 20 or fewer. 3 to 5 is 30 students, but strive for 25. Middle and high school is 30 students or fewer. And then class size requirements may be exceeded in study hall, band, or choir. Fascinating.
But you don't want to, you obviously don't want to hit the ideal. You never want to go to the maximum.
Correct.
Well, probably some percentage less than the ideal.
And I imagine that if our goal was to, as part of open enrollment, set a number, a target number that was at or below what it says in the contract, we would have no argument from teachers. But also we sometimes go over that target when there's a bubble of kids somewhere.
all right, so we're waiting till the 20th.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and then student government day, I think we're all set with that.
So the only thing I'm waiting for, unless you and Zach have heard back, is nobody has told me definitively who are the kids following.
We don't have that yet. We don't have any of that.
And what are the exact hours they want us? We have this room?
And we have this room
From
from
9
9 to noon.
Okay.
Yep. And they're still, I think, finalizing
Okay.
stuff. We just got back from break, so that's probably. what
I
they're working
emailed the
on.
Wheelers.
Yep.
Just to say, hey, we're still available if
Yep.
you have any idea.
Yep.
And
Okay.
I think if we have homework questions, I think we should ask the kids.
The other place we
Definitely
could look
like
to
to-
for homework questions is you could go back to the survey and see, just kind of use this survey at the beginning and follow-up questions in terms of.
I mean, can we set up a Google Doc and just throw some questions on there?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Sure. That sounds great.
I have a list of our
Yeah.
former discussion.
So it has to be-
Yeah.
I mean, and
And
honestly,
we're on that outside.
And for student government day, last year it ended up being a little bit freeform. So it was sort of, you get random kid who was supposed to be with Peter Rice and then had nowhere to go, who's just showed up to hang out with us for 45 minutes. And I think that's fine.
I think as long as,
We don't have more than,
well, and as long as, Heather and Michelle know that this is an option for those students.
Yeah.
So that they're not feeling disconnected or like that there is a place that they can come and have a conversation.
So what I would think we should do is potentially just print out copies of some of the policies so that they have something to look at for the conversation. And I think we wanted to talk to the kids about homework for sure.
Dress
Said
code,
dress code.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding is one that the kids wanted to talk about because they've had problems with it. I would be curious to know their thoughts on AI, even though we don't have an AI policy.
Yeah,
Just because I
me
think
too.
that
That
would
would
be
be good.
interesting to
Yep.
hear from them.
And honestly, that's 4. And if you're in here for 3 hours and if you take 45 minutes on a policy,
Yeah, I mean, last year just bounced around, you know, because we had like a dress code discussion and those
Yeah.
kids wandered off and then 2 new kids showed up. And so we maybe started the dress code policy again.
yeah, I mean, that gives you like,
Yeah.
for 45 minutes per policy, time for bathroom breaks,
Yep.
whatever, right? That's good.
And I was just gonna ask the board to let me know if people can come in even for an hour that time. I think as long as we're not making any decisions, we're just listening to kids.
Yep.
So I don't think it really matters too much from a foreign perspective in
Yeah.
that context.
It might be helpful for the kids, just to give them a 5-minute overview of what the policy manual looks like, so that if they ever want to, well, I mean, you can go online and
Yep.
just to show them, say, you know, are you aware of this, there's a place where you can go if you want to know what all the
Yeah.
Yep.
rules and regulations are for the schools that cover.
Yeah.
Especially because then there's that whole section that's just related to students.
If we can use this and hook it up to a laptop so we can put a policy on the screen too, that would save us from having to.
You probably wouldn't even need to hook it up to a laptop because what I could do is I could log in here
Oh, okay.
and just get this up and running and then pull up the browser. And we could have the browser up,
Whatever policy.
right? And then you just would use this
Okay,
like a giant computer.
okay, that works.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a New Hampshire School Board sample policy for use of generative artificial intelligence.
why not give it to the kids? That would be instructive for them.
Some-
Let them fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Lisa, are you talking about, are the students who are gonna be here only the people shadowing us? Or are you talking?
So here's what
about-
happened last year. Like last year, I think what did we have? A single kid. I think we had a student assigned to Zach and to Nancy.
Somebody ended up, I started out with 2.
But then you didn't have them.
Well, no, I started out with 2 and then somebody lost their student because the night before we had the board meeting. And I had 2. And then somebody else lost their student and then one of mine went to them at the
Uh-huh.
city side. So I kept 1.
Right.
But I think that at some point during the day, there were some students just
Yeah.
floating around,
Yeah.
not knowing what to do. I know a lot of them ended up down in the Portsmouth room.
Well, that's where I was for the whole morning.
Right.
The stragglers.
Right, so I think that if the Wheelers know that this would
is
be
a
the
good place for
location. and
anyone who's
This
lost.
is
and
how
has
the
nothing
day
to
is gonna
do.
be set up, and the morning will be set up,
Well,
and just have him funnel through.
okay.
And I think
that's
have to be done
I'm
by
not sure I can be here
That's
that day. So that's why,
You can
so if I have.
part of it, I think that should be.
Which day again is this?
Well, I just.
What-
It's
March 19, and I'd say roughly 9 to noon. And I mean, I can do it. And if anybody can come for even an hour.
And it might get truncated too, because I don't know what time lunch is
I don't
coming. But I mean, at least we have this location.
Yep.
So
You know, and if we had early, we'll early.
there's a place, there's a plan.
Yeah.
I think we're in good shape for that.
Um, and I think there's a chance, I don't know if this is gonna happen, but I had talked to Nate Delaney about sending his potential replacement to us for the morning. But I mean, that's a student government decision.
Yeah.
They're gonna do it, it's us, but we can scare them off before they sign up to do it.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So. Great.
Are you adjourning?
Yes.
We're adjourned.